In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
But I do ask every publisher, every editor, and every newsman in the nation to re-examine his own standards and to recognize the nature of our country's peril. In time of war, the government and the press have customarily joined in an effort based largely on self-discipline to prevent unauthorized disclosures to the enemy. In times of clear and present danger, the courts have held that even the privileged rights of the First Amendment must yield to the public's need for national security. Today, no war has been declared, and however fierce the struggle may be, it may never be declared in the traditional fashion. Our way of life is under attack. Those who make themselves our enemy are advancing around the globe. The survival of our friends is in danger, and yet no war has been declared. No borders have been crossed by marching troops. No missiles have been fired. If the press is awaiting a declaration of war before it imposes the self-discipline of combat conditions, then I can only say that no war ever posed a greater threat to our security. If you are awaiting a finding of clear and present danger, then I can only say that the danger has never been more clear, and its presence has never been more imminent.
It's time to recognize that we've come to a turning point. We're threatened with an economic calamity of tremendous proportions, and the old business-as-usual treatment can't save us. Together, we must chart a different course. We must increase productivity. That means making it possible for industry to modernize and make use of the technology which we ourselves invented. That means putting Americans back to work, and that means, above all, bringing government spending back within government revenues, which is the only way, together with increased productivity, that we can reduce and, yes, eliminate inflation.
The only thing that can stop this corrupt machine is you. The only force strong enough to save our country is us. The only people brave enough to vote out this corrupt establishment is you, the American people. I'm doing this for the people and for the movement, and we will take back this country for you, and we will make America great again.
Hello and welcome to Inform America. I'm your host, Rich Merritt. Today is March 25th, 2020. And I mention that because historically it'll probably go down. I can look back on this in 10 years if I'm alive and say, oh yeah, that's when they had the pandemic. I wore the gloves in an effort to try to maintain some cleanliness in here because the studio is trying to do the same and make sure that people keep coming in here, don't get infected. So I'm doing my little part for whatever it's worth. I want to ask you to please go to Boston Broadside, check that newspaper out. I think you'll like it. It's I guess I'd call it a fledgling newspaper, but it's a good newspaper. They tell the truth, so check it out. Secondarily, the National Liberty Alliance.org has incredible educational tools on its website, and they are trying to restore the rule of law. Without the help of the people of America, it isn't going to happen. They need your help. And help any way you can. I'm not only talking financially. All organizations need financial help. But if you can put some time into it, volunteer to do that. And thirdly, I'd like to ask you to support my book, Stand Your Ground. It's on Amazon. It's on Kindle Books. And there'll be a flyer put up at the end of the show. If in the flyer there is a link. If you want to purchase it through that link, it happens to be, aside from Kindle Books, it's cheaper than Amazon. Order it through there, and if you'd like, I'd autograph it for you. My autograph's worth a lot of money. Sure it is. No, I'd be happy to do that for you, though, if you'd like. The show today is basically going to be about my favorite topic, the government. But I have people in my family that think I'm a conspiracy nut. I can prove to them every single thing I say, but I'm a conspiracy nut. I'm not a fact-based individual. I'm a conspiracy nut. And it really bothers me. So I'm going to put forth a show today, which I believe should go viral. Not because I'm on it. Matter of fact, it isn't this show that I want you to see. You have to see a part of this to get to where I want you to go. But anyway, we'll move on from there. I'm going to show some clips, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of them in between, and then at the end I'll explain exactly what I'm talking about. But before I get started, I did want to say this about your government, okay? In 2008, we bailed out the banks to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. We, the people. It's our money that they're spending. It's not monopoly money. Sometimes it feels like it, but it's ours. Now they want to do a stimulus bill, and it looks as if corporate America is going to be taken care of and the banks are going to be taken care of. But unfortunately, the people were in there too, and it doesn't look like they're going to help. What they should do, and I hope Congress hears this, what they should do is put forth a rebate bill, because what they're doing is rebating the people back the money that we originally gave them to operate our government. They're not doing us any favors. It's our money to begin with. Our elected representatives, the people we represent, or the people we elect to represent in Washington, D.C., our public servants, have turned their back on the people, their employers. And it's going to be evidenced by this video that I'm going to show you. So please pay attention. We'll start the first clip if we can.
The year was 1913. Woodrow Wilson was president, and powerful banking interests, who had been trying for years, finally achieved their long-term goal of a silent coup d'etat by taking control of the American government. The first thing they did to accomplish their takeover was convince Secretary of State Philander Knox to lie to the American people and tell them that the 16th Amendment, the Income Tax Amendment, had been legally ratified by the states when it was not. The bankers knew that this tax would ultimately end up in their pockets. Because of this fraud, the American people were led to believe there was now a tax on their labor. Congress and the President are completely aware of this fraud, and it was even cited in a recent court case. That very same year, the bankers committed their second and by far the most diabolical fraud ever perpetrated on the American people by bribing senators to pass the Federal Reserve Act without the required constitutional amendment.
All in favor, say aye.
They did this during Christmas vacation, when many senators were home celebrating the holidays with their families. And that's how the unconstitutional Federal Reserve Act came into being. They were very clever, and they understood that whoever issued the money for America would control the government. The bankers won, and the American people lost, because most politicians will sell their soul for $1. And now the Federal Reserve could issue dollars legally. As Mayor Rothschild said, "Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws." He knew that he and the other bankers would now control the laws of the nation. Government gave these bankers one of its most important powers, and now had to borrow money from them and pay interest to finance the government. So the American people were forced to lower their standard of living and pay a graduated income tax to the government, just so the government could give these bankers more profits.
Isn't it wonderful how they can take your money from you via your labor, your time and your labor, your wages and compensation. And they can do it, by the way, without any authorization. The Constitution has to be changed by an amendment process through the states. Congress, they don't have the authority to change the Constitution. No way, shape, or form. It says so in there. Look at the 10th Amendment. And the only other thing I wanted to say is that the 16th Amendment wasn't even ratified properly. It was unlawful. Yet, 107 years later, they're still collecting a tax from the people that is unlawful. And the courts and the president and Congress not only know about it, they're in on it. Now, if we can go to the second clip, I'd appreciate it.
What's your name?
Jan Crafting?
Hi, Jen. I'm Aaron Russo. I produced the movie
Is this a joke? Am I going to
No,
make
that's not a joke.
Okay, go ahead.
No. I produced the movie Trading Places with Eddie Murphy and The Rose with Bette Midler, many movies, and I'm doing a feature film. And my film was about my quest to find out whether or not people pay income taxes. Do you pay an income tax?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a law that requires you to pay an income tax?
Have I ever read it? You mean in the page, black and white? No.
So you pay the income tax, I assume?
Of late. Well, actually, no, I didn't file last year, but
Okay.
I'm sorry, is this on film? No, I paid my taxes.
My question to you is, have you ever seen a law that says you have to pay an income tax?
The law is that guy that wears that badge and a gun. That's the one that puts you in jail. That's the law.
Actually, I can't stand the IRS. They're evil.
Do you have any fear of the IRS?
Not really, because I'm Canadian.
I think it's actually unconstitutional, is what I've heard. But to avoid any hassle, I pay it.
If there was no law and I wasn't afraid of them coming and taking me to jail, absolutely, I wouldn't pay taxes.
Okay, then no, I wouldn't pay income taxes.
It's a no-brainer. You wouldn't pay.
I wouldn't pay it.
Why would anybody?
Because that's what they tell us we must do, else we're bad Americans.
Would you pay it?
No.
Would you pay it?
No.
Why would you pay taxes if you don't have to?
What if I told you that all your money that the income tax that's paid into the income tax just goes to pay the interest on the national debt?
That's incredible. That's truly incredible. I thought it was for infrastructure and all the other stuff.
The income tax is not legal because it would be a direct tax and it is not apportioned as the Constitution demands.
If it's against the Constitution, then why are we doing it?
One of the things I wanted to mention, the lady just said it. If it's against the Constitution, why are we doing it? You're going to have to ask yourself that question. I've already answered the question for me, but you're going to have to answer that question for yourself. I think it's important that you watch the video. We're showing you a couple short clips. Watch the video, America, Freedom to Fascism. We'll put up a clip later on so you can follow it, so to speak. But it's amazing that people pay the tax. If it's unconstitutional, another word for unconstitutional is against the law, why are we doing it? I don't know. Why are we doing it? Because we're afraid of our government? Isn't that tyranny? If the government's afraid of us, that's called liberty. Which one do you want to see? All right, if we can go to the next clip, please.
You can look through the statutes and look for the law that requires you to pay. And when you do that, you can't identify a law that requires the average person in America who earns a wage and works in private business to pay an income tax.
The Constitution allows for two kinds of taxes. They're called direct and indirect.
The federal government in the Constitution can tax almost anything, as long as it apportions the tax if it's direct.
The indirect tax is, for example, an excise tax. I can avoid the excise tax on gasoline. I can choose to ride my bicycle. I can avoid the excise tax on tobacco. I can choose not to smoke, or I can grow my own tobacco.
The income tax which is being applied now doesn't meet the criteria of either direct or indirect taxes.
The IRS claims that in 1913, the 16th Amendment, the Income Tax Amendment, allowed the government a third form of taxation. What was the Supreme Court's ruling on that?
The Supreme Court in the case of Stanton versus Baltic Mining. I mean, what could be clearer than this? The provisions of the 16th Amendment conferred no new power of taxation.
The Ruschauer case also said that the 16th Amendment did not impose any new taxes and did not change any of the taxing restrictions of the Constitution.
There were also several other major Supreme Court cases in that same period from 1916 up until about 1923.
Stratton Independence versus Hobart, Southern Pacific versus Lowe, Bowers versus Curbo Empire, Burnett versus Harmel, Doyle versus Mitchell.
It's actually very simple. Congress tried to enact an income tax in 1894. The Supreme Court said that's unconstitutional. When the Supreme Court says something is unconstitutional, it's unconstitutional. They tried again in 1913, and the Supreme Court said the 16th Amendment conferred no new power of taxation. So, if they didn't have it then, and they didn't get it, they don't have it. There is no constitutional basis for a tax on the wages of Americans living and working in the 50 states of the Union. Period. End of argument.
I have a letter here from Daniel Inouye's office of the United States Senate that says, based on the research performed by the Congressional Research Service, there is no provisions which specifically and unequivocally require an individual to pay an income tax. Period. End of story. There is no law, and to date, nobody has been able to show that there is a law for the average American citizen working day in and day out to pay an income tax.
The definition of income in the Constitution was given in the Eisner versus Macomber case, and it turns on gains or profits that are made from some activity.
Doyle versus Mitchell, 247 U.S. 179, 1918. Here's what he said. The idea of gain or increase arising from corporate activities. In other words, it doesn't mean wages, it doesn't mean dividends, it doesn't mean alimony. It means a gain or a profit arising from corporate activity.
These liens that are recorded against people by the government for tax liens are nothing more than allegations. They are non-substantive. They have never been determined by a neutral third party, such as a court, to have one shred of validity.
If you ever get a notice of an audit or anything else, the first thing you should do is a Freedom of Information Act request for records that they're using to substantiate or justify the audit.
There is nothing in the Internal Revenue Code that creates any such thing as an income tax evasion or crime. There's nothing in the code that allows IRS agents to seize property. The government is involved in judicial blackmail. The government knows that if it legally seizes somebody's property, that person doesn't have the funds and he can't even get a lawyer who can help him.
I conducted investigations in the Title 18 of the Criminal Code, the U.S. Criminal Code. And in there, the statutes and the regulations are very specific as to what's violating the statute. In the Internal Revenue Code, Title 26, there's nothing specific in there. I mean, even the FBI is feared of the IRS.
You have to understand that an agency which will unlawfully impose a tax that doesn't exist is not going to care. If we, the people, don't know what our rights are, they're not going to tell us.
If Americans just learned that the IRS was actually knowingly deceiving them, that would be enough for them to rise up and put a stop to it.
This small booklet includes the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. This is a document that every citizen should read. It's a document which freed an entire nation. This is the Internal Revenue Code, and this document, and the unlawful application of this document by the Internal Revenue Service has enslaved the nation that this document attempted to free.
Another prime example of how they extract money from you. They said, one of the comments was, the FBI is afraid of the IRS. The FBI is in law enforcement, and so are the local police, the state police, the sheriffs. How come they're not enforcing the law? The law says you don't have to pay a tax on your time and labor, wages, and compensation. It says it. If you watch this video, you'll see that. And they're giving you case law. The names of them that they mentioned there, that Owen Schiff mentioned. And the reason I'm saying this is I've heard a couple of attorneys talk about the judges being biased. Any judge that would allow someone to go to jail when there is no law being broken, should serve the sentence of all the people he let go to jail. Irwin Schiff, the guy that was talking a little while ago in the film, died in prison for not paying a tax on his time and labor. The Browns right here in New Hampshire, I think it's been 12 or 13 years, they've been in prison for not paying a tax they don't have to pay. And the way they do that, by the way, just briefly, because there's a lot of different ways, watching this video will help you understand it. When you say I'm a U.S. citizen, you're saying you're a citizen of Washington, D.C., not the United States of America, the United States, Inc. So when you say that, you're admitting to being in their jurisdiction and they can tax you. There's more to it than that, but that's part of it, and you have to understand that. Please share the video at the end of the show. It's America, Freedom to Fascism. Everybody should see it. I believe we got another short clip.
What happens if your own government is using more force and more coercion on its own citizens for the purpose of achieving its political ends? Is that government engaged in terrorism?
Now let's watch the...
All right, if we could put up the clips, the links, I'm sorry, not the clips, the links, you'll see. Just focus in on the top one, America, Freedom to Fascism by Aaron Russo. I'm asking you, we'll leave it up for a minute, but I'm asking you to take a look at it. If you need to copy it, if you're on YouTube, click on it. It's a 2-hour video. Is 2 hours worth 10 years of your life? I paid taxes to the federal government for 50 years. If we pay 20% tax, that means 10 of those 50 years I paid a tax to the government. I gave my paycheck for 10 years to the IRS. They, in turn, gave it to the Federal Reserve Bank, the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, and all of them. It didn't go to pay for the government at all. Listen to this video. Pay attention. You're intelligent men and women out there. Find out for yourself and share it. This video should be #1 in America, along with 2 other videos that next week or the week after we'll portray. Please. This isn't, I get nothing for this. I get nothing for it. And I'm taking a stand. Me personally, I'm taking a stand. Other people should too. I can't tell you what to do, but what I can encourage you to do is watch the video. Write down the names of the case laws. You can go to Google and type it in, and that court case will come up. Read it. Just read the decision to give you an idea of it. Go back and read the charges in the decision, and you'll have an idea of what's going on. You don't have to read every case they mention. I didn't. I read 3 or 4 of them, maybe 5. I'm not really sure, but over the years, I don't look at them all. I mean, if I read so many and they're consistent, I figure, well, the next 2 or 3 that I read are going to be consistent too. But this is very important. I can't convince people to watch this video. You'll watch Dancing with the Stars or The Walking Dead or whatever the stupid-ass movies out there. I don't own a TV. I've only heard those names, so I don't even know what's on TV. But is this more important to you to find out what's wrong with your government? Or is it more important to find out, hey, the Super Bowl or the basketball games are off now because of the virus? Well, what do they do for your life anyway? Put food on the table? Smarten your kids? What do they do? This law, this video, will help your family. But you have to watch it. If you don't watch it, it won't help you. What I'm suggesting to everybody is please watch it, but not just watch it. If people in your family are saying, you're a conspiracy nut, do yourself and them a favor and send them this link. Send them the show so they can see it. I challenge everybody in America to watch this video, and I'll give you the second one on the list too, is understanding the truth behind the IRS. They go hand in hand. Once you watch the 2 of those videos, watch them 2 or 3 times. There's no rush. Have your kids watch them. Understand how your government is screwing you and has been for 107 years since the Federal Reserve Act went into effect. They're still doing it. The president knows about it. Everyone in Congress knows about it. But you pay that money to the banks. Federal Reserve Bank. Watch the video. Please don't sit here and say I'm a conspiracy nut. The facts are in this show. You can document them and verify them for yourself if you want to, unless you just want to dismiss it because you're too lazy, fat, and ignorant not to do it. It's your life. It's your world.
2 minutes.
You don't have to acknowledge anything. You can sit there and be ignorant. Or you can get off your butt and you can do something. I'm encouraging people to watch this video, everybody in America. And the numbers that are up there, by the way, on YouTube are totally inaccurate. They got 2,900 views. It's been around for 15 or 16 years, this video, and it's in the hundreds of thousands, but unfortunately, it should be in the hundreds of millions in this country. It should be an educational tool so your children and grandchildren don't get sucked up in this web. With that, I'd like to ask people to please watch it and please share it. It's more important that you share it. Even if you think no one's going to watch it, share it anyway. Okay? Beyond that, I'd like to ask people to share this. Go to YouTube and subscribe. We have a Facebook channel. Like us there. Aside from that, be safe. Whatever you got to do to keep away from the virus and all this other stuff. God bless and thank you for watching. I hope you watch this.